guys, welcome back. In this video I'm going to be going through the process of making my new fox doll, which is Korudo, the snow fox, so stay tuned. So as usual, I'm starting off with a resin head, which I have sculpted, molded and cast in resin, and this one I sculpted with Sculpey, so it's one of my earlier pieces. And I did mold it in silicone and then cast it in resin. So I'm going in with that Chrome Acryl black acrylic paint, and I'm painting around the eyes, the nose and the mouth. So just with most of my dolls, I have a backstory, so I'll read the backstory now. The snow fox is a shy creature. The black and white spotted coat helps them blend into the snowy mountain peaks. Their thick fur consists of two coats. The top coat, which has longer, more spread out hairs, and the undercoat, which is much thicker and softer, providing them with adequate warmth in the colder climate. When they are frightened, snow foxes tend to try and avoid confrontation by camouflaging themselves against the terrain, only resorting to violence when threatened. Snow foxes have tremendous bite strength, far greater than any other fox species. This is due to the frozen foods that they eat. Some specific packs of foxes have a unique trait of ice fishing. They use their bite strength to bite a hole in the ice and fish from the hole. Snow foxes are found throughout the coldest part of India, mainly in the white tribal lands. So there you have it, there's a little backstory. And also, this little fox is available in my Etsy shop, so the link is in my description if it's not already been snapped up. So you can go check it out there if you're after her. Right, so I've just painted the eyeballs a nice sky blue colour, and I'm just painting in the irises with that same black chrome acryl paint using that dry brush technique. And you can see that if I've gone a little bit too far around the edges, I can just use another brush, a clean one, and wet it a little bit, and I can dab away the edges to feather it out again. And then painting up the paws as well. So this is a fur that I'm going to be using for the sides of the body. I'm going to be using a different fur for all the other parts. So this is I wanted to go for a snow leopard kind of look, but not exactly a snow leopard. So I had this fur that worked really well, but I wanted the fox to have longer fur. So I ended up modifying it as I was cutting the pieces out. So I wanted it to have sort of a mane that was a little bit longer and a different colour as well. So you can see how I drew on the neck, and I ended up just cutting it off anyway. Right, so once I've cut that out, this is the other fur that I'm going to be using for around the neck and the tail. It's a nice grey colour with some black tips, and it's got a nice long pile as well. So you can see here how I've only cut out the neck patterns and the underbelly and the tail, of course. And so once they've been cut out, I can then pin it together and sew it up with the sewing machine. And again, I prefer to use the sewing machine because it is a lot stronger than actually hand sewing everything there. So there are some pluses and minuses with either way, but when you use a sewing machine, you will have to use some hand sewing as well, because you need to leave some areas open to flip the fur inside out or the right way around. But I just find it a bit more stronger than hand sewing. Okay, so here's what the wolf will end up looking like, and I really like the way that mane complements the body of the fox as well. So I will do some adjustments for the size of the neck and everything once everything has been sewn and pinned together. So I had a few requests to get some footage of sewing on the sewing machine. So I'm just trying out some different angles and stuff because it's a little bit difficult to capture. So let me know what you think of the footage, or if you have any angles that you want me to try. So this was the best angle that I could sort of get without my hands and arms and head being in the way, and I don't really have much space behind the sewing machine either to capture that. But yeah, so I thought this was the best angle, and it's a little bit sped up, not too bad, because I know people wanted to see this, me sewing at the sewing machine. So I'm sewing the tail right now, and I'm considering it's a small tail. I usually only sew the end of the tail and then hand sew the rest of it because it's a little bit too difficult to turn the right way around. So yeah, I just end up sewing the tip of it so it's nice and strong, and then the other end, which is hand sewn, I can then combine it when I attach the tail with some more hand sewing just to make it that little bit more strong. So I generally have a pattern that I do when I sew things. So I sew the front neck area first, and then I'll move on to the other side of the front neck area. I'll then do the back end of the side area, and then the other back end of the side area, and then I'll do the top, which I'm doing now is the top back end. So I find that strategy to be a lot better than any other way because I can then make sure all the pieces are actually symmetrical and everything measures up. So here's what we have after I've run it through the sewing machine. So you can see I've left the back end open and also the leg area. And you can also see how I've attached that neck area to the other side of the fur, and how the underbelly is just straight grey as well. So once I've flipped it out, the grueling task of flipping things inside out, here's what we have, which I pretty much didn't trim or anything, I just used it as it is. I really like the way it turned out and how the fox has a larger mane. So once I've done that, I'll then make an armature and feed the armature in through the back end, and then I'll attach the resin pieces onto that armature once it's been fed in and fill it again with polyfill. So as that tail needed to be hand sewn, I can just insert a little clip of me hand sewing it. It's probably not that exciting, but people want to see different things. Yeah, so I'm just using a ladder stitch to go back and forth just to close up using, it's a blind stitch. And I do the same with the legs and the back end as well. So once I've sewn up the leg using that ladder stitch, I'll then go ahead and attach that fur piece to the resin piece using a tacky fabric glue. And I just get it from a local craft store here in Australia called Spotlight. And you can use any tacky fabric glue that you can find. So this is just a little clip of just after I have furred his face and trimmed everything. And you can see how it's a little bit washed out. So I wanted to show you before I actually added any shading. And just a quick look at his body once I've actually shaved the lower end, the underbelly, and I decided to turn his tail around in this one because I kind of felt a Shiba Inu vibe with it. So I wanted to try it and I really liked it. So what I'm doing now is I'm just shading all of the pieces that would ordinarily be black like I painted at the start. So I go around and just shade in what needs to be shaded in because sometimes the fur actually washes it out a bit, and so you need to shade some things in just to bring out all the features of your little critter. So I use two different kinds of paint. I use that same Chromacryl acrylic paint, and then sometimes for the fur I will use a fabric paint, or I use a Sharpie stained pen. Once I'm happy with the shading, I can move on to adding some little details and spots. So again, I had a little inspiration from a snow leopard, so I wanted to add some little spots and markings to the face, but I didn't want it to be exactly the same as the snow leopard, so I added a couple of little features like the stripes down that little muzzle area. So here's what we have so far. I do want to do a video on these pens, on textures, so if you have any questions about them, leave them in the comments down below. And also you can check out my Etsy shop to see if this little one is still available. If not, I might have some more in the future. And that is it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you have any requests, you can leave them in the comments down below. You can also check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Net, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!